Our next presenter is Adam Weissman from Global Justice for Animals and the Environment, who will be talking about how to take corporate back trade agreements that are outsourcing jobs to exploitative sweatshops and also destroying family farms, agroeconomies, developing countries, and invading wilderness.
Okay, so you heard my earlier presentation. There's a lot of overlap, but I'll got back to running. Reframe a bit for anyone who might have not caught that foundation. The focus of this talk is how corporate globalization is one of the biggest tools that animal industry is using to increase profits at the expense of animals. Now, when we look at free trade agreements, the U.S.-South Korea free trade agreement, and we look at who were the biggest industries pushing for this trade agreement, there are two that really stand out. One is the global financial industry. There are many, but in particular two. One is the financial industry, and that's because the Korea trade agreement included all kinds of nice rules that essentially ban regulating Wall Street. Rules that prevent regulating too sale, that prevent regulating toxic derivatives, and basically all the Wall Street practices that led to the financial crisis of the other industry that was a big factor of this free agreement was industrial animal agriculture. Corporations like Cargill, Organ and Smithfield Foods, industries like the National Pork Producers Company. Now, why were they such big enthusiasts of this trade agreement? Well, under this trade agreement, and under trade agreements generally, countries are forced to lower their tariffs on agricultural imports. So, for U.S. corporate activists, this is good news. They use industrial-scale factory farms, confining animals, intensive confinement factory farms, where animals are packed together to lower costs, use subsidized feed to keep their costs down, and lobby the government heavily to make sure that the feed stays subsidized, so that they can use large volumes of products at low cost. Now, producing large volume products at low cost works best to have consumers to buy those products. So they're constantly looking to expand their markets and increase their profit share on their low-cost products. Around the world, there's an increasing push towards industrial-scale factory farming, but much of the world is still using a more traditional family farm model and less industrialized model of agriculture. That's producing livestock at greater cost than is possible under the industrial factory system, particularly when you add all subsidized feed. So when U.S. corporations are able to lower tariffs on other countries, meaning lower added costs that's put on U.S. imports, they are able to enter markets for the products at low cost. Their products are able to enter the marketplace in those countries at lower cost than domestically produced products. Those tariffs, which is exactly what those tariffs are supposed to prevent, especially. Tariffs protect local farmers. They protect local producers. In a country where farm mostly is still done with traditional methods, where costs are higher, tariffs allow agricultural communities to continue to exist. They allow people to buy locally grown commodities from local farmers. Once you eliminate tariffs, you can now flood countries with products that dramatically look below the prices that local producers set. So, for example, in the U.S., dark meat chicken is not a particularly popular product. So that's great U.S. producers. Now all they have to do once they have a trade agreement is export dark meat chicken to countries where it is consumed, sell it at dirt cheap prices because it's essentially a byproduct of a more high-cost product, and wipe out all the local farmers in those countries, leaving people with no choice but to buy the imported goods even if they choose, even if they're not. Moreover, the World Trade Organization, the global body that oversees trade agreements, is a set of global trade agreements, not the country-to-country trade agreements that are called bilateral trade agreements. The World Trade Organization has a rule that country of origin labeling on meat is illegal, meaning that consumers cannot, it is illegal for countries to pass laws telling consumers what treat the meat that they've grown up. So let's say a consumer let's say a consumer said on principle that they don't want to buy U.S. produced meat because they know of terrible factory farming system in the U.S. how dangerous the U.S. is between mad cow disease and flu and swine flu. People who are aware that factory farming produces dangerous food now lose the ability to find out where their food is produced. So for looking back to the case of Korea, the Korea trade agreement guaranteed U.S. agribusiness a massive new market to invade and grossly increase profits for producing the beef in Korea, for example, is vastly more expensive than producing beef in the U.S. Producing pork, producing poultry, all these products are more expensive locally in Korea than is possible in the U.S. sector. What does that mean? A couple things. One is that people end up eating animal products overall because animal products become cheaper in relation to others. Second thing, it means that producers in Korea or other countries where the same effect happens increase their own factory farm production. They shift as family farms are moved are pushed out of this in response to factory farms spring up for two reasons. One is because the only kind of farming that can survive against U.S. imports, and two is that high-volume grain purchasing is more possible once the free trade agreements eliminate tariffs on U.S. exports. So what we're seeing as a result is not just more people eating U.S. animal products, not just more people eating factory farm products, but more people eating animal products overall as a result of the trade agreement. We expect more animal suffering in factory farms. That means a greater contribution to climate change, and that, according to the World Wide Fund, 51% of climate change is attributable to animal agriculture, and that means a greater threat of infection. Factory farms are the incubator, and long-distance livestock transports are the incubator for diseases like bird flu and swine flu. Industrial agriculture is what gave us mad cow disease epidemic. These free trade agreements dire to global health, even if you don't stop to consider the fact that a global shift towards diets heavy in animal products are increasing global rates of so-called diseases of affluence, of heart disease, of cancer, of the diseases that people in this country and are actually killing more and more people around the world as people around the world start eating more and more like people in the U.S. The World Organization, which I mentioned before, has consistently attacked laws protecting animals and protecting food. One related example, a few years ago, Europe tried to pass a ban on beef from hormone cattle, primarily because people considered this dangerous. But also, as we know, hormone-treated, there are huge animal welfare implications for injecting cattle with hormones, with growth hormones that have very destructive health effects and painful side effects for these animals. The World Trade Organization ban was barriers to trade challengeable in violation of free trade agreements that the WTO oversees. And so now every year, Europe has to pay concessions to the United States to import hormone-based disease. There's also the World Trade Organization, where the U.S. is suing Europe for passing a ban on chlorine-treated poultry. That seems insane to be treating poultry with chlorine in the first place. The factory farm meat is so toxic that this is one of the two ways that they can guarantee they're going to kill vast amounts of pathogens that are produced by the factory farm slaughterhouse system. So instead of taking saner steps like considering the wisdom of industrial agriculture, and shifting towards a model that is less intensive and less dangerous, the U.S. instead is trying to force Europe to accept these absurd chlorine-treated products. stepping away from animal agriculture from the World Trade Organization also ruled against has also heard cases on fur, cases where the World Trade Organization where there's a World Trade Organization, the threatened World Trade Organization account against the European ban on wild-caught fur. Just the threat of a challenge is enough to get the U.S. and get Europe to drop their ban on wild-caught fur from countries using illegal traps. When Canada was supporting the U.S. prior to the challenge, the law was watered down into total meaningless. Canada, Norway, and Iceland are now challenging the European Union's ban on steel products so that they can continue profiting off clubbing baby eels. The World Trade Organization, time and again, has ruled against animals. There was a case in the late 90s where the World Trade Organization was heard a challenge against the practice of banning shrimp imported from countries that kill sea turtles. The World Trade Organization decided that these rules were discriminatory, and the U.S. was responsible for helping countries implement any new technologies to and creating new rules regarding shrimp imports, rather than saying that the U.S. had a right to place a blanket ban on sea turtle deadly shrimp. So the WTO is a global threat animal protection. And the threat of WTO is often enough to stop animal protection. That's why Europe hasn't instituted a cosmetic testing that has been established for years. I mentioned that it's had an effect on anti-puppy mobilization. So across the board, free trade agreements are used as a direct way to attack animal protective legislation, ban factory farms. They also contribute directly to the destruction of wildlife habitat through encouraging increased development, mining, logging, and plantation agriculture products. They also encourage wildlife trafficking, as the Colombia Free Trade Agreement, where farmers will, as a result of losing their ability to farm, something I mentioned before, will have no choice to shift as a way of life towards taxing and exporting wildlife. In a country where 80% of the wildlife exported never makes it to their destination without dying, and something like 7 billion animals exported annually. So free trade agreements are continuing an attack on animals. Perhaps the first notable WTO case and most recent case is a disastrous case the dolphin tuna case, where the WTO just recently ruled that the U.S. law the U.S. dolphin tuna law gives consumers labeling information about the killing of dolphins and tuna nets was a violation of WTO rules. So not only can the U.S. not ban dolphin and tuna, but even informing consumers of whether their tuna contains dolphin-deadly tuna is a violation of WTO rules. That dolphin tuna case is an ongoing case that's gone on since the early 90s. First, as a general agreement on tariffs and trade, with all of the WTO. As a result of GATT, the tariffs and trade rulings being largely unenforced, WTO, unlike GATT, can bring sanctions on cases when countries refuse to abide by WTO rulings, and bring penalties on countries. WTO has teeth, and those teeth can be used to attack animal protection time and again. In conclusion, we, as animal protectors, need to recognize that WTO is the great event to any progress that makes on animal protection law, not only because it can prevent us from stopping destructive and dangerous imports, but also because free trade agreements like the WTO, both between countries and global ones like the World Trade Organization, encourage destructive producers to escape local laws by simply production overseas and then exporting back into countries that have strong animal protection legislation. What can we do? We can hold politicians who vote for these trade agreements accountable. We can work to expose or vote against animal trade agreements to the public. It's an election year, and we need to challenge every legislator who voted for the free trade agreement that passed Congress last year in Panama, Colombia, and South Korea Free Trade Agreement. In New York, that's 5 local representatives, both senators, and of course President Obama betrayed his campaign promise to oppose these free trade agreements, and then sent them to prison. And recognized that it was more important to keep the corporations funding the election was to maintain this promise. For more information, visit GJAE.org or freetradesilkanimals.org, or email info@GJAE.org to contact Global Justice for Animals and the Environment, or visit TradeJustice.net